Hello and welcome to India Reads. We are reading The Enchantress of Florence by Salman Rushdie, and we just started reading in the last video where we were introduced to this yellow-haired stranger from Florence. He calls himself Ucello. He's arrived at the city of Sikri to meet the Mughal emperor there. Uh, we have also been shown his journey to reach Hindustan, which is through a Scottish Milrod's pirate ship, and he had smuggled himself in the ship and then presented himself when the ship was in the middle of the ocean, and he called himself Ucello. He charmed everybody in the ship's crew and also got friendly with the captain. The captain is called Lord Hauksbank, and he starts telling him his story. So that's where we left it, and let's start. Now I must share a secret that you will never divulge to anyone. Come with me. This is Lord Hawksback talking to Ukello. In a small wooden box concealed behind a sliding panel in the sleeping quarters, Lord Hawksbank of that ilk kept a collection of beloved objects of virtue, beautiful little pieces without which a man who travelled constantly might lose his bearings. For too much travel, as Lord Hawksback well knew, too much strangeness and novelty could loosen the moorings of the soul. These things are not mine, he said to his new Florentine friend. Yet they remind me of who I am. I act as a custodian for a time, and when that time is ended, I let them go. He pulled out of the box a number of jewels of awe-inspiring size and clarity, which he set aside with a dismissive shrug, and then an ingot of Spanish gold which would keep any man who found it in its splendor for the rest of his days. It's nothing, nothing, he muttered. And only then did he arrive at the real treasures, each wrapped in cloth and embedded in nests of crumpled paper and shredded rags, the silk handkerchief of pagan goddess of ancient Sogdia, given to a forgotten hero as a token of her love, a piece of exquisite scrimshaw work on a whalebone depicting the hunting of a stag, a locket containing the portrait of Her Majesty the Queen, a leather-bound hexagonal book from the Holy Land, upon whose tiny pages in miniature writing embellished with extraordinary illuminations was the entire text of the Quran. A broken-nosed stone head from Macedonia, reputed to be the portrait of Alexander the Great, one of the cryptic seals of the Indus Valley civilization found in Egypt, bearing the image of the bull, and a series of hieroglyphics that had never been decoded. An object whose purpose no man knew, a flat polished Chinese stone bearing a scarlet I Ching hexagram and dark natural markings resembling a mountain range at dusk. A painted porcelain egg, a shrunken head made by the denizens of the Amazon rainforest, and a dictionary of the lost language of the Panamanian Incumus, whose speakers were all extinct except for one old woman who could no longer pronounce the words properly on account of the loss of her teeth. Lord Hawksback of the ilk opened a cabinet of precious glassware, and that had miraculously survived the crossing of many oceans, took out a matched pair of opalescent Murano balloons, and puffed a sufficiency of brandy into each. The stowaway approached and raised a glass. Lord Hawksback breathed deeply and then drank. "You're from Florence," he said, "so you know of the majesty of that highest of sovereigns, the individual human self, and of the cravings it seeks to assuage for beauty, for value, and for love." The man calling himself Ukello began to reply, but Hawksback raised an hand. "I will have my say," he continued, "for there are matters to discuss, with of which your eminent philosophers know nothing. The self may be royal, but it hungers like a pauper. It may be nourished for a moment by its inspection of cocoon wonders as these, but it remains a poor, starving, thirsting thing. And it is the king imperiled, a sovereign forever at the mercy of many insurgents, of fear, for example, of anxiety, of isolation and bewilderment, of a strange, unspeakable pride, and a wild, silent shame. The self is beset with secrets. Secrets eat at it constantly. Secrets will tear down a kingdom, I guess, and leave in its scepter broken in the dust. I see I'm perplexing you, he sighed. So I show myself plainly. The secret you'll never divulge to anyone in our is not hidden in a box. It lies, no, it doesn't lie, but it tells the truth in here. The Florentine who had intuited the truth about Lord Hauksbank concealed desires sometime before gravely expressed proper respect for the heft and the circumference of the mottled membrane that lay before him under the lordship's table, smelling faintly of fennel like finocchio sausage waiting to be sliced. If you gave up the sea and came to live in my hometown, he said, your troubles would soon come to an end. For among the young gallants of San Lorenzo, you would find the manly pleasures you seek. I myself, more regrettably. Drink up, the Scottish Milrod commanded, and colouring darkly and putting away himself. We will say no more about it. There was a glitter in his eye which his companion wished were not in his eye. The hand was nearer to the hilt of the sword than his companion would have liked it to be. The smile was the rictus of the beast. There followed a long and lonely silence during which the stowaway understood that his faith hung in the balance. Then Hawksback Bank drained his brandy glass and gave an ugly, anguished laugh. Well, sir, he cried, you know my secret, and now you must tell yours, for certainly you have a mystery in you, which I foolishly mistook of my own, and now I must have it plain. The man calling himself Ucello de Firenze tried to change the subject. Will you not honour me, my lord, with an account of the capture of the Cacafugo treasure galleon, and where you must have been, with Drake of Valsipario, and the Nombre de Dion where he took the wound? Hawksbank drew his glass against the wall and drew his sword. Scoundrel, he said, answer me directly or die. The stowaway chose his words carefully. My lord, he said, I am here as I now perceive to offer myself to you as your factotum. It is true, however, he added, as the blade's point touched his throat, that I have a more distinct purpose too. Indeed, I am what you might call a man embarked on a quest, a secret quest that's more. What's more, I must warn you that my secret has come upon placed those by the more powerful enchantress of the age. Only one, only one man may hear of my secret and live, and I would not wish to be responsible for your death. Lord Hawksback of the Elk laughed, not an ugly laugh this time, but a laugh of dispersing clouds and a revenant sunshine. You arouse me, little bird, he said. Do you imagine that I fear your green face, witch curse? I have danced with Baron Samedi on the Day of the Dead and survived the hoodoo howls. I take it more unkindly if you do not tell me everything at once. So be it, began the stowaway. There was once an adventurous prince named Argalia, also called Arcalia, a great warrior who possessed enchanted weapons, and in whose retinue were four terrifying giants, and he had a woman with him, Angelica. Stop, said Lord Hawksback of that ilk. clutching at his brow. You're giving me a headache. Then, after the moment, go on, Angelica, a princess of the royal blood of Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, stop! No, go on. The most beautiful, stop! Whereupon Lord Hawksback fell unconscious to the floor. The traveller, almost embarrassed about the ease with which he had inserted the laudanum into the host's glass, carefully returned the little wooden box of treasures into its hiding place, drew his party-coloured grease coat about him, and hurried on to the main desk calling for help. He had won the at cards, and a hand of scabby corn played against an astonishing Venetian diamond merchant who could not believe that a mere Florentine could come to Rialto and beat the locals at their own game. The merchant, a bearded, ringlead Jew called Shalak Cormano, had had the coat specially made at the most famous tailor's shop in Venice, known as Il Moro Invidioso, because the picture of the green-eyed Arab on the shingle over its door, it was an occultist marvel of green coat, its lining a catacomb of secret pockets and hidden folds within which a diamond merchant could stash his valuable wares, and a chancer such as Ucello de Firenze could conceal all manner of tricks. Quickly, my friends, quickly, the traveller called in a convincing manner of concern. His lordship has need of us. If among this hardy crew of privators turned diplomats, there were many narrow-eyed cynics whose suspicions were aroused by the manner of their leader's sudden collapse, and who began to regard the newcomer in a manner not conducive to his good health. They were partly reassured by the obvious concern shown by Ucello de Firenze for Lord Hawksback's well-being. He helped to carry the unconscious man to his court, undressed him, struggled with his pyjamas, applied hot and cold compresses to his brow, and refused to sleep or eat until the Scottish Milrod's health improved. The ship's doctor declared the stowaway to be an invaluable aid, and on hearing that the crew were muttering and shrugging back to their posts. When they alone with this insensate man, the doctor confessed to Okello that he was baffled at the aristocrat's refusal to awake from his sudden coma. Nothing wrong with the man, I can see. Praise God, except that he won't wake up. He said, and in the loveless world that it may be, it is wiser to dream than to awake. The doctor was a simple, battle-hardened individual named Praise God Hawkins, a good-hearted sawbones of limited medical knowledge, who was more accustomed to removing Spanish bullets from his shipmates' bodies and sewing up cut glass gashes after a hand-to-hand combat with the Spaniard, than to curing mysterious sleeping illnesses that arrived out of nowhere, like a stowaway or a judgment from God. Hawkins had left an eye at Vallaspracio and half a leg at Nombre de Dios, and he sang every night a mournful Portuguese fidores in honor of a maiden on a balcony in the Ribeira neighborhood of Oporto, accompanying himself on a sort of gypsy fiddle. Praise God wept copiously while he sang, and Okello understood that the good doctor was imagining his own cuckolding, conjuring up to torture himself images of his port wine drinking beloved in bed with men who were still whole fishermen stinking of their funny prey, lecherous Franciscan monks, the ghosts of the early navigators, and living men of every variety and hue. Dragos and Englishmen, Chinamen and Jews, a man under the enchantment of love, the stowaway draught, is a man easily distracted and led. As the scuds made her way up the Horn of Africa and the island of Socorta, She took on the supplies as muskar and then left the Persian coast to port, blowing along with the monsoon wind, headed southeast towards the Portuguese homes of Diu on the south shore of the place. Dr. Hawkins called so Guzerat, so Lord Hauksbank of the ilk slumbered peacefully on a sleep so calm, praise Lord, according to the helpless Hawkins, that it proves that his conscience is clear, and so his soul is at last in good health, ready to meet his Maker at any time. God forbid, said the stowaway. Praise God, let him not be taken yet. The other readily agreed. During the long bedside vigil, Ucello often asked the doctor about uh, the Portuguese lady love. Hawkins needed little encouragement to discuss the subject. The stowaway listened patiently to the adjoining pains of to the lady's eye, her lips, her bosoms, her hips, her belly, her rump, her feet. He learned the secret of endearment she used in the act of love, terms to no longer so secret now, and he heard her promises of fidelity and her murmured oath of central union. Ah, but she's false. False, the doctor wept. Did you know this for a face? The traveller inquired. And when the lachrymose praise God shook his head, saying, "It has been so long, uh, and I am now but half a man, and I must assume the worst." Then Ukelo coaxed him back to gaiety. Well, let us now praise Lord, for you weep without a cause. She is true, I am certain of it, and waits for you. I doubt it not. And if you have legless, well, then she will have love to spare. The love allocated to that leg can be reassigned to other parts, and if you lack an eye, the others will feast twice as well upon her who has kept faith and loves you as you love her. Enough, praise Lord, sing joyfully and weep no more. In this fashion, he dismissed Pause God Hawkins, rightly assuming that the crew would be desolate if they did not hear his songs. And nightly, he was alone with the unconscious Mildred and waited for a few minutes. Oh, he's unconscious, he's not dead. A man who builds a cabin with one hidden cavity has built a cabin with at least two or three, he reasoned. And by the time the port due was sighted, he had plugged Lord Hawksbank as clean as any chicken. He had found the seven secret chambers in the paneled wall, and all the Jewish in all the wooden boxes resident were safely in their new houses in the Tsar of the Shahala Komorano, and the seven gold images too. And yet the court felt light as a feather, for the green-eyed Moor of Venice knew the secret of rendering weightless whatever goods were screened within that magic garment. As for the other objects of virtue, they did not interest the chef. He let them nest where they lay to hatch what birds they could. But even at the end of his giant pilfering, Ukelo was not content, for the greater measure of all had eluded him. It was all he could it was all he could do to conceal his agitation. Chance had played a great opportunity within its grasp, and he must not let it slip. But what was he doing? He looked over. He looked over every inch of the captain's questions, and yet it remained hidden. Dramatization was the treasure under a spell. Had it been made invisible to escape him thus. After the squad's brief landfall at Diu, she made haste for Swiss, from which city, since the size of the punitive resist by the Emperor Akbar himself, Lord Hauksbank had intended to embark on his land journey to Mughal's court. And on the night when they had reached Surat, which lays in ruins and smouldering from the emperor's walls, when praise God Hawkins was singing the heart out and his cabin were rum drunk and rejoicing at the end of a long sea voyage, the subscriber below or the searcher below decks at last found what he was looking for, the eighth secret panel, the eighth secret panel. The eighth secret panel, once more than the magic number of events, one more than the one more than almost any robber could expect. Behind that ultimate door was the thing he sought. Then, after one last deed, he joined the travelers on the deck and sang and drank more heavily than any man aboard, because he possessed the gift of staying awake when no other man eyes could remain open. The time came in the small hours of the morning when he was able to slip ashore in one of the city's dingies and disappear like a phantom into India. Long before praise Lord Hawkin raised his last sea code and released it forever from the torment of the yearning Finoshima. Ucello the Firenze he had gone, leaving only the name behind like an abandoned skin of a snake. Next to the nameless traveler's breast was the treasure of treasures, and the letter in Elizabeth Toldo's own hand, and under the personal seal, the missive from the Queen of England to the Emperor of India would be his open sesame, his passe parrot to the world to the of the Mughal court. He was in England's ambassador now. Okay, with this we finished chapter 2. What did we see in chapter 2? Okello does not reveal anything about himself to the ship's captain, Lord Hawksback of the Ilk, but he keeps Lord Hawksback engaged by discussing and asking more questions. Lord Hawksback is able to realize that, and he threatens Okello to tell him his story or be prepared for punishment. By that time, Okello had already spiked the drink that Captain Hawksback was having, and Captain Hawksback therefore has gone into some kind of coma, or he possibly has died. We don't know about it. I am assuming that he's gone into coma. So this kind of gives you a picture of how the stranger who calls himself Okello, he is quite smart. He is able to use the ship and the sea captain with whom he had no connection, and now he is trying to kind of bypass the channels which are there in the hope of reaching out to people directly and getting things done faster. So so that's where we are, and we don't know whether he's dead, not dead, but we will find out more in the next reading. Like I said, this book is a little challenging for me. I've had already recorded a similar video yesterday, but I was not happy with it. I thought let me slow down my reading and read it carefully so that nothing gets missed out. If you do have any comments, suggestions, you want me to do any kind of changes, do drop in the comment section below. Till we meet next time, do take care of yourself and goodbye.